8 traps to avoid as a psychic, coming up right after this. Good evening, this is Lucky Lynx. I think people responded strongly to the video I did yesterday on 8 things that you need to learn as a psychic. So here, if you are going down this path and you're trying to increase your psychic ability, learn how to become a better psychic, or just develop right from the beginning, here are 8 things that I think that you should avoid, 8 traps that you should avoid falling into. And if you avoid falling into these, your path will be a lot more enjoyable and it will go a lot faster. All right, number 1, believing the future is fixed. The whole reason that I got into this to begin with was so that I could help people spot something that was potentially dangerous, hazardous, or something that could ever otherwise cause people misery, uncertainty, anxiety, and help them to avoid it. If the future was fixed, there would be absolutely no reason to do this except to sort of sit as a passive viewer of your own life. And there are those out there who believe that everything is fixed and, I threw it in the cards and therefore that's the way it is, and that's coming up later as one of the pitfalls to avoid. But the future is not fixed. You can see something, you can see a potential, you can see the patterns of something, you see where something's headed, and you can decide that you don't want to go down that road, and you can change it. But when you believe that it's fixed, when you tell yourself that it's fixed, when you say, hey, this is fate, it's the way it is, it's going to be, that's probably the way it's going to happen for you. Most of the time when I see people say, hey, tell me what's coming, if you tell them this is what's coming and they convince themselves that's it, this is what's coming, there's no chance to change, is exactly what happens. If, however, you approach people with the idea of, okay, this is where you're headed, you can see the possibilities, the potentials unfold, you can see certain things start to come into play, and when they come into play, the person can change their direction. And you see it all the time. You see people changing their direction, changing their fate, and moving past something that would otherwise cause a difficulty. So avoid that pitfall of assuming that the future is fixed, because when you believe that it's fixed, when you tell yourself that it's fixed, when you act as though it's fixed, you'll step right into it. Number 2, the God complex. Assuming that just because you can read the tarot, that it somehow makes you bigger, better, badder than everyone else. That's sort of a God complex, and believing that your word is the last word in a situation. I always say to people, hey, this is the information as I'm seeing it, this is the information that's coming up, now it's up for you to make the decision that you'd like to make. It is not my position to play God and to say this is the be-all, end-all, my experience, my view, my whatever it is the omniscient, all-seeing one, and there's a point about that coming up. But the whole God complex, where I can see I have this magical gift, I therefore am divine. I see it a lot in the New Age with people these days who they think that they are part of some holy army and that they are above everyone else because they are on their way to enlightenment, and they are psychic and they got a bag of crystals, therefore they're better than everyone else. I see it in the other religions as well. I see people coming along and thinking that they are the mouthpiece, the almighty sword of God. Those are people who are trying to claim the power for themselves, and their real concern isn't really the spirit so much as it is gaining power and asserting their power. So watch the God complex when you get into it. Whenever you get into a situation where you're dealing with spirits, the spirit world, or advice in relation to this kind of subject, it's real easy for people to get arrogant and assume that their word is law. Number 3, this is one of the biggest problems I see out there these days. That is the good person thing, the light and love thing. There's a reason why I'm adding this to the list, because and the way that I see it approached, the way that I have seen it for years approached, is it comes off as passive-aggressive judgment on the people that you're reading for. What it says is there is a certain set of experiences that are valid, that are right, that are true, and there are a certain set of ones that you should not be a part of at all. And when the client who is going through a situation where they're feeling challenged doesn't live up to the reader's code of light and love, it's very easy for them to feel judged by the individual who's doing the reading. Then it's not a case of, hey, this is the information that's coming through, this is the information that's that I'm getting for you. It's well, you should only eat this way, you should only this way, you should only behave this way, you should only blah. And then it becomes this forced set of behavior that really isn't even natural to how we are as human beings, and it denies half of our potentials and possibilities. It is not coming from a place of honesty. It's I'm trying to look a certain way so that you like me, and if you're more concerned about people liking you than you are about getting the information that this person needs who's coming to you because they're probably in a jam or they're in an uncomfortable situation, or in some cases a very embarrassing situation where they don't need this sort of passive-aggressive judgment on top of it, that they're not living up to this light and love standard. Hey, you know what? You're in this situation. There's an affair going on. This is what's going to happen if you go down that road. This is what's going to happen to go down that road. That's it. Okay, you're angry. You're struggling. Okay, you know what? Maybe you need to aggressively get that anger out and express it because it's there for a reason, instead of saying, no, deny that, force it down, shove it down, choke on it. Maybe this person's gift is that they're a fighter. Maybe they're really good at fighting. Maybe they're really good at swordplay. Maybe they're really good at hunting. And that's really their gift. And to say, hey, no, only this, and this are acceptable, and this is all barbaric. And especially well, I won't judge you, but I will sit above you because I'm more evolved spiritually as an individual who's light and love. That's a really heavy thing to hang on a client who's coming to you and you're saying, hey, I'm way better than you because I'm up here and I'm ascending, and you're dealing in these situations where you're still on that diet or that. And if you hear them talk, a lot of times they'll say, well, I used to do that before I ascended. So this whole holier than thou, light and love thing, hey, it's pretty lame to actually hang that on someone, or hang that on your clients, or hang that on people, or try to expect that other people can live up to something that's really not very natural, and something that's usually only about forcing the real anger down. I'm going to add one more thing to that. The one thing I always notice from all the people on social media who claim light and love is the constant stream of repressed revenge memes they're posting. Or I'm going to walk away from people who don't appreciate me. I would get revenge if I could. Don't mess with me. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought you were all about light and love, and here's all this bile that's backing up inside of them. That's because they're not really being honest about what they're feeling. They're not really being honest about who they are. They're trying to hold what in mind sciences we call a happy mask. And the happy mask is not genuine. And when you're not genuine, you can't connect with another person that you're reading in a genuine way. And it's really hard to be psychic and connect to people if you're not being genuine. All right, number 4 goes along with that. This is the need to control a person by telling them exactly how they're supposed to act or what their outcome is supposed to be. So the need to control the outcome. Some of you may have had a reading where someone said, well, you have to do this, 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 this is what you have to do. The spirits say this is what you have to do. And sometimes the spirits will be insistent. They'll say, hey, look, if you do this, you're going to get your butt kicked. If you don't do that, if you do this, you're less likely to. But when you get involved in a situation, for example, where people, like a lot of times people come to you for relationship advice and you say, you have to leave this person, that's controlling the person's outcome. That's controlling their life. I think it's much more sensible to say, hey, this is what the oracle is telling me. This is how the oracle has put it. This is the information that I'm getting from the oracle. Now I hope that you have the information that you need to make an informed choice. So it's not so much about you have to do this, as this is the information that's being presented. Now, hopefully you have more information than you had before this situation, before you came to me, before we talked about it, and now you can make a more informed choice. Whenever you can allow a person to make a better informed choice, but to make their own choice, I think it's better than people win. It's not really a psychic's job to tell everyone and everything how they're supposed to live their life and what they're due. We sort of get flashes of things, we tune into things, we get information. Here's the information. Do what you will with it. Number 5. This one kind of goes along with it. It's kind of similar, it's subtly different, thinking that you have all the answers. A lot of times when you're doing readings, you can think that maybe you have all the answers, but sometimes there are other pieces that come in the picture that for whatever reason are being obscured. And sometimes that's because the spirit world is specifically obscuring something for whatever reason. So just because you tap into the situation and you see this, and this, that doesn't always mean that that's all of the information at play. It may be the most important information at play. It may be that there's something else that maybe the person doesn't want to reveal. And I've heard psychics say that when a person doesn't want to reveal it, that they can't read past that. So that happens in some cases. But it doesn't necessarily mean. A lot of times things are so layered, and there's so many layers to something, especially it's sometimes very tricky when you've got a bunch of people all lying to each other. Sometimes it's very hard to pull the players apart and to pull what the truth really is, because what you've got there is you've got like 6 or 7 overlaying realities, each one believing that theirs is either right or true when they're either lying or lying to themselves. And sometimes it can be very hard to get all of the information. You only get pieces and glimpses. And then at the same time, you may be getting the advice from whatever spiritual being you're interacting with, or the cards or whatever. So you may only be getting certain pieces, and sometimes you have to fill in the rest. And sometimes it comes as a question so that the individual that you're working with can actually ask themselves the question that they need to ask so that it can unlock whatever it is in them. So assuming that because it's there in front of you in the cards, or because you heard it through some mediumistic connection, doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the answers. It just means that here's more information that's added to the picture, and if it all connects, then usually that's a win-win situation. But sometimes, for whatever reason, you may find that 1 or 2 or 3 or more pieces are actually missing. Number 6, giving unsolicited advice. I don't know that I've seen this one in a long time. I used to see it a lot when I was living back in Chicago, and I do psychic fairs and things like that. People running around. Actually, sometimes I guess you see it on social media, people running around giving unsolicited advice. I know that a lot of those pop psychics, you know, they like to say that they run around telling everyone their business. There is this wonderful quote from Lao Tzu. I've written it down in my notes. Those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know. And it has been my experience in all the years that I've been doing this, that if people walk around telling everyone unsolicited, giving everyone unsolicited advice and telling them, well, this is your future, and this is what you should do, and this is what you should do, and they haven't been asked, well, first of all, that causes resentment from the people who didn't ask you. And second of all, it could simply mean that the person really doesn't know what's going on. They're just speaking to make themselves appear like they know more than they really do. So watch that habit of walking around. It's not your job to walk around to everyone and everything and tell them what their business is. Because remember, a psychic is still a human being, and psychics still have problems, and they still have their own limits, their own challenges, and it really behooves us as psychics to work on our own stuff and take care of our own stuff, and that makes us better to actually help or advise or give assistance to another. Number 7, martyrdom, and this kind of connects to that last one, and usually I see it with folks who walk around giving unsolicited help, advice to other people, and then they feel insulted that the other person didn't take it, or they didn't want it, or maybe this other person really wants to solve their own problems, maybe they don't want anyone in their business, maybe they don't think that what you've given them is really helpful for them, maybe you think it's the greatest advice in the world, but it really isn't for them. And then what happens is the people offer this help, they offer this advice, they offer this healing. The other person didn't take it, and suddenly it's the world is, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart because I try to help everyone and no one appreciates how spiritual and powerful I am. When you do that, you're a drag, you pull other people down, and it's not, in the end, going to do anything for anyone except create enemies and victimhood and that whole martyrdom. And then there's another thing I'd like to add to that martyr thing. This I do see all the time. If you're running around telling everyone that you're psychic and you're an empath and that I'm an empath, I can sense what's going on the minute I see you when I'm here in the room with you, and boom, I know everything about you. If that's true, but then in the other breath you're complaining that you're always hooking up with narcissists, well then there's something off here in this picture. Because if you know everything and every feeling, every sense, and you know every game that everyone's playing because you're so profound in your psychic ability that you're hooking up with all these narcissists who are taking advantage of you, check your ego. Because you may not be as profound a psychic as you think you are. And that's part of the martyrdom thing too, where, oh my God, I am so profoundly psychic that everyone just wants to feed on me. It could be that you're just fooling yourself, or you're doing something for attention. Because people who really are empathic, and they are, and my partner is one of them, who is a massage therapist, they're usually very quiet about it, and they have to manage things and process things themselves, and they're usually a particular healing, or there's usually a particular modality, learning modality as well. And they don't run around bragging about it. They're usually too busy having to process things and having to get rid of other people's garbage and other people's junk, because they do actually absorb other people's stuff. And they're not usually the ones running around bragging that, well, I'm getting involved with all these people. No, if you really are psychic, if you really are empathic, you should be able to feel it and go, this is not right, and push it away. Number 8, I think this one causes more problems and more difficulty, more pain, more suffering for more people who are starting out as psychics than any of the other ones. And this is a pitfall that I'm going to tell you. And I wish I would have known this one when I started out, because it would have saved me a lot of problems. It would have saved me a lot of pain. Just because you're psychic doesn't mean you're omniscient. It doesn't mean that you're going to see all, know all, feel all, sense all. Give that up right now. I see people online all the time playing these games where, like, here's a box. I want everyone to guess what's in the box. And then they get all dramatic over the fact that they didn't guess what was in the box. There are a whole lot of other things that are going on in that situation that people aren't even considering, that are affecting the outcome. Just because you're psychic doesn't mean that you're omniscient. Also, if you're actually interacting with the spirit world and you're talking to spirits, that's not necessarily the same thing as knowing what's in a box, or knowing what's happening down the street, or knowing what's happening, at the cafe 3 doors down and be able to describe it. There are things that you can do to practice things like remote viewing and stuff like that. Those are things that you can actually practice to get better. But if you assume and you tell yourself that you're supposed to be omniscient and then beat yourself up because you're not, well, you're just going to make this a whole miserable thing for yourself. You're not going to be able to develop. You're not going to be able to become that psychic who has that wow factor and can actually connect with people. And remember this, if you can't actually connect with the person in front of you and give them something of value that they can take away, then what's the point of actually doing this? If you're just doing it because you want a power trip, that's, I guess, as valid as anything else, but it's not the same thing. So check your motivations and know why you're wanting to do it. Are you wanting to do it because you're not feeling confident about yourself, and being omniscient would suddenly make you confident? Because that is the surest way to make your confidence tank, by trying to make that happen. But if you really want to connect with people, if you really want to work with people, if you want to assist people, and you really want to do this in a way that actually brings value to other people's lives, take the omniscient thing out of it and really focus on the why, how, what is going on, and how can I make or give this person something of value that they're really needing and really asking me for. I am Lucky Lynx, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. I hope these eight traps, these 8 pitfalls, teach you something, inspire you, give you something to think about, help you to avoid some kind of pitfall that maybe you were making, or sidestep one that was coming your way. If you would like to get a reading from me, 779-302-8009, or conjurehope@gmail.com. If you'd like to take a class in how to read the tarot, I've got a class in how to read the tarot. I've got beginning, I've got an advanced class, I've got one in how to read Lenormand cards, that's a basic, one in how to read Lenormand cards, that's Grand Tableau. I've got one on how to read Mexican Loteria, one on how to read crystal balls, one on how to read playing cards. If you'd like to take any of those classes, contact me, 779-302-8009, or conjurehope@gmail.com. And hey, if you've donated, and I thank you very much for donating. If these videos are giving you something to think about, you want to donate, I'm going to put my PayPal, my Venmo in the spot below. For those of you who want to do your Tibetan astrology, I'm doing charts for people. I am a little backed up, but I would suggest doing it now because it's just going to get more backed up. It is amazing what Tibetan astrology will reveal to you. Also, your Tibetan Khil Khor, where we make a map of your life, and then I employ Tibetan bond processes to sort of remove obstacles or bring things into being. If you want to do any of those things, 779-302-8009, conjurehope@gmail.com. Remember, if it's not fun, if it's not enjoyable, if it's not bringing joy into your life and other people's lives, if it's become tedious, if it's a misery, you're not doing it right. Developing your psychic gifts to bring you more in touch with who you really are naturally, not pull you further away from yourself.